Since I was a boy, I've been lounging in black bars in New Orleans. Blame it on the music. My mother would take me to the Winner's Circle, now Seals Class Act, where my older sister would perform with her father's band. Once I picked up the horn as a teenager, it afforded me certain privileges, chiefly entrance to bars with loud music without parental guidance. I'll never forget the 1995 New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival when Wynton Marsalis joined fellow trumpeter Cameron Ruffin said at Little People's Place. It was a late night jam session. Little People's Place is a black-owned bar in one of the oldest black-owned neighborhoods for black folk in America, Treme. The bar is about the size of a living room in a small apartment. The front door opens into the performance area. Musicians had to scooch over to let patrons through. I was about 17, collar popped, sunglasses on, and my silver box trumpet shined. I was clean, but easily the worst musician there. It was cats from the Charles Mingus Big Band, Wynn's band, and other players. Wynton blew a custom-made Monet trumpet, beautifully adorned with decorations that made it heavier than other trumpets. Wynton grew tired of holding it and asked to borrow my horn. I obliged. As I stood to the side, one of the bargoers said, "I bet you ain't never heard your horn sound like that." He was right. Today, an underage musician in New Orleans is unlikely to have that experience. First, it was a noise ordinance that forced several long-standing neighborhood bars to cease live music. And these days, the black bars are turning white. Black spaces in New Orleans are almost as old as the city itself, and many of today's long-standing bars reach back to the civil rights movement. One of the oldest on record was the Economy Hall, built in 1857, where jazz was cultivated. Dances lasted until 4 a.m., and they held brass band funerals. These places have become integral to civil, social, and political structures within the black community. Then and now, they are a respite from the racial and economic inequities outside the black community, a place where one can get a drink with dignity, slow drag on the dance floor, or just talk. Throughout Africa and the African diaspora, black bars tend to serve as more than just hangouts, be it the shebeens of South Africa or the juke joints of the Mississippi Delta. So, right here, sometimes I look at my work as like the trickster within the African diaspora of storytelling, the Trojan horse. This picture would be one of them. You look at it, you just see something extremely pretty, in my opinion. But it's really speaking to something else. So this is St. Joseph's Night, 2015, where the Wild Magnolias are processing from the Big Chief's house to 2nd and Dryads. And the name of this photo is Wild Man Comb. So if you ever been to see Black Masking Indians, the wild man is the get back man. And open up the hole, and you might get hit if you're too close. So, but this neighborhood is like really changing. So I just kind of want to demark the black people in the neighborhood, and hopefully I come back in 3 or 4 years, they'll be there, but they might not be. It's just changing so fast, and it's interesting the dichotomy of these homes compared to homes 2 or 3 blocks away on St. Charles Avenue, where you have these beautiful mansions. And this was the working class neighborhood that now the working class people are getting priced out of. And it's a venerable tradition that its existence could be tepid. So that's the crux of this project. So this is a different day, and this is a different tribe. The name of this photo is called Come Tuesday. It's definitely a playoff of the Duke Ellington and Mahalia Jackson song, Come Sunday. When you hear Black Masking Indians talk about putting on a suit, they talk about a transformation, a spiritual kind of thing. So this is inside of Sportsmens Corner, one of the older black bars in New Orleans. But you see like all this institutional knowledge of all the people who have been there throughout the years. And this is Mardi Gras Day, or Carnival Day. And he just looks like he's just in another place. This is Mawan Pleasant's play song. I have difficulty saying his last name. But this is Golden Eagles, all right? So this is where I kind of got some of the influences from. Bernie Imes's, he did juke joints in the 1980s in Mississippi. And when he did the project, the juke joints were ubiquitous and everywhere. Now they kind of languish in like the single digits. This is inside of it. And when I looked at this project in graduate school, I loved it. And but then I had problems with some of the parts of it. And then I thought to myself that this is something I'll do in New Orleans one day, like all these bars that I would go to. And it's like, you know, I scribbled it in my notebook, wrote it down, took some notes, and let's hold on this one for a second. And I was like, I'm gonna do this a while from now. One day I was driving down St. Bernard Avenue, where this is, probably in maybe late 2017, and I noticed that all the black bars on St. Bernard Avenue had turned white, save for the other place. And that's violence, because it's violence against the culture, it's violence against the people. It's violence because even though this place is still facing as being black owned, or how it, a reference to its black past, when you go inside, as I showed you inside Sportsmens Corner, it's the Void of Blackness. And where do the cultural practitioners go once they're not here anymore? What happens when all these bars turn white? Where do the social aid and pleasure clubs go? Where do the black masking Indians go? So it was then in 2017, most of my work is started because I'm curious or I'm pissed the fuck off. So this pissed me off, and I just started working. So this is in, I think, 2019 or 2020. I would look at the schedule, but that schedule I remember was from a year old. This is called Mr. Victor's Routine. Turn, open, unlock the door, Jerry, Jerry, Jerry. Because when I was writing it, I was, I was thinking about the lead. And the lead was gonna be something like, in 40 years, Mr. Victor's routine has been unvaried. He opens the door and does this and does that, and everything around him has changed, but that's unvaried. So I was like, well, what do you do when you come in? And he was like, well, man, I unlock the door and then I turn on the TV before the alarm. And I always watch Jerry, Jerry, Jerry. So, I'm kind of waiting for him to open up, and I'm sitting there, and so I took this picture. But, as a storyteller, when I went to graduate school, you learn to report for senses. I'm trying to immerse whoever into the story. So be it smell, be it sound, and for this visually, because a lot of people have not gone into here. So this is the other place. Now there's two black-owned bars. Bertha's, right? Bertha's is now in the old place that was, I can't remember. But yeah, this is the thing I love about the black bars. You still have the paneling, the wainscot, you still have all these signs. And it reminded me of the juke joints, but then I wanted to make it my own. And just the bus trips, that was probably a sign for a bus trip. And just all this institutional knowledge that I see. All right, we're gonna move forward. That's Mr. Victor, Mr. Dawkins. It was interesting, I took this probably the first night working on a project. And I thought, it's interesting, you're supposed to have, like, as a reporter, it's supposed to be fair and balanced. But the truth is, you always come into a story with your own hypothesis or your own belief, and then you're trying to report to try to figure it out. So I was like, man, Mr. Dawkins, how you feel? All these bars around you changed? He was like, man, he has an accent. He's like, I don't blame him. He said, if somebody gives me a good price, I'm selling too. He was like, I've been doing the same shit, selling the same jokes, selling the same drinks to people for 30 years. I was like, damn. Tell me why you really mad, son. Yeah. So yeah, but since the pandemic, I've seen a sign on his building several times for sale, but he is still there. So I love to see him. And then you hear other bar owners say stuff like, oh, Mr. Victor always talk about selling. So, we'll see. Yeah. That's coming inside to the bar. Like you got the little rule of thirds, happening. You got a person here, you got a person there. Yeah. You got somebody coming in. Something I love. And one thing about black bars too that I love, the decorations don't come down. You know, it's gonna be Christmas, Happy New Year, and Mardi Gras at the same time. All right. This is I call this Baby When the Lights Are Low. It's a Ray Charles song. So when you in these bars, I found out, even though I grew up in New Orleans, even though I'm a black person, even though I've gone into these bars before, it's still like being a new dude in high school and walking to the lunchroom for the first time. It's like, oh shit, like where do I sit? Who do I talk to? Like, oh Lord. So you gotta get permission because you're on private property. The rules are you gotta get permission to talk to people. The way I figured out, I go into all these bars cold, never get permission anywhere first. Yeah, so what I do is I figured it out. You meet the bartender. If a strong bartender, that's your entrance to everything, all right? Or the bar owner, you meet them, or a bar patron, a real strong bar patron. I realized in Pittsburgh, I had permission from the owner, and it was the bar patron who really put me over because the bartender was like, you can't take no pictures. And then the dude was like, let that man take these pictures. Larry gave him permission. I was like, my boy. So, I talked to this guy. I was like, can I get permission? But then Buddy was just smiling and smiling and smiling. So I just had to kind of like wait him out, and then take the pictures. Then you got to get pictures. You can have permission from the place, but then you got permission from the people. So that's the name of this one. We're going to go on. It still is inside the other place. That's over there, First and Last Stop, Carolyn Christianberry. She used to be, it's a word like a barmaid, something like that. Like she was that, and then when the owner died, she purchased the building. But this is, they have Indian practice over here, monogram hunters. This is also the first night back in 2018. This is called The Regulars. This is at Voret's Lounge. So Voret's Lounge is an aberration as far as black bars that have turned white. To my knowledge, this is the only place that hadn't displaced the culture. So you still see that, the Mardi Gras Indians still come out of there. They still have a social aid and pleasure club that come out of there. When it was black owned, it was called Turning Point Lounge. And we have our setup right there. And you still see the theme of the wood paneling. And red is very prevalent in these bars. This is the Sandpiper Lounge. Now, this is probably in early 2020. And for some reason, this one was like I had been into this project. I had been doing it. But for some reason, I was a little intimidated by the Sandpiper. So I took this is like my warm-up. I'm like kind of like just trying to get it together, trying to work up my nerve to go in there. And then the dude came outside. He's like, if you really want some real pictures, you're going to come on inside. And that was Benny, the owner. So I was good once I went in there. And it was like kind of after Thanksgiving time. And it was probably about 5 or 6 people in there. And they had some ladies to the bar. And like for some reason, we all drinking. After I finished taking photos, I started drinking. So someone was like, I'm hungry. This dude said, man, I got some, what was it? Stuffed mirlitones that I'm gonna bring you down. And then he like set it down, like all crab meat, no bread. I'm like, damn. And like we eating his Thanksgiving food in his bar. So it was a beautiful thing. But sadly, this bar has not reopened since the pandemic, right? So 2018, this bar is now shuttered. And how it affects the culture, when I was at a second line maybe about a month ago, usually second lines, they meander for 4 hours throughout the city. They have a route. It can start off at several places, but you stop along the route because who's gonna dance for 4 hours straight? So usually when you go into the bar during the break of a second line, you're gonna have some sandwiches, you're gonna have some beer, you're gonna have some drinks, you kind of refreshed, then you come on back out. So when they stopped, because it was shuttered, they just like literally stopped in front. And it was sad to see, it was still a celebration, but extremely sad. Like, and who knows what will become of this iconic place. This is called Baby Let Me Hold Your Hand, or no, something like that. It was a Ray Charles song, another Ray Charles song, because if you look at Ray, when they're entering into this music club, which the sign wasn't there before the movie, but the sign has become iconic now, and they recorded a lot inside. So this is on Louisiana Avenue. All right, that's Mr. Benny. I call this Benny's Lincolns. Got the fives. It was interesting. He was talking about. We were talking earlier, and we were talking about, I love New Orleans, but I hate New Orleans. And you see how they make it very restrictive. And I see even in this current political administration, how they were cracking down on Claiborne Avenue, the businesses going on the underpass, the overpass. Kermit Ruffins kept getting cracked down. I'm talking about during the pandemic. Now you see, it's just so many restrictions. It's like a bait and switch. We're gonna promote our culture. We're gonna entice you to come here with our culture, but we don't really give a true fuck about our culture, because if you did, you would do significant investment in it. I need to investigate more, but you have London, the pubs in London, like the historic pubs. They created some type of ordinance that when you sell, you can't make just a candle shop. It can't, that pub has to remain a pub. But that's a culture that realizes the importance of these places. So for me, this is like an ethnography project, thinking Zora Neale Hurston, who was able to archive all this language in Florida, or Alan Lomax, who was fascinated by the blues and did all these field recordings. So if I realized that these places were not written about, these places weren't very intentionally documented in an intentional way. Most of the places, when you looked it up, you couldn't find anything unless something bad happened, right? A shooting, or the owner was just so well known, they'll mention it in an obituary. But, unlike a restaurant, Uglich's, or all these other iconic places that were written about, someone wrote some recipes, and they were institutionalized that in a way it'll go well beyond the bar that once it closed. So that's another aspect of the project. It's ironic, but I didn't set up the slideshow. No, it's not a complaint. This is Purple Rain Lounge. This is also shuttered. So that's what I'm saying. So this is the Monday Faithfuls. So this is about 5 o'clock on a Monday, and Purple Rain Lounge is on Washington Avenue. And the Golden Blades come out of there. So the bar changes through the day, right? So at 5 o'clock, you got the retirees, they're kind of having a drink. They're truly watching the news. Sometime around 7 or 8, the music turns up, and it kind of changes. But again, I went in here cold. That's Ike Dixon. I guess I just asking permission. That's the bartender, Precious. That's Unc. I don't remember his name. But, I'm so glad I took this photo. Because it looks like it's going to be a residential property now. So it looks like kind of like a pink building. So it was so iconic. The Purple Rain bar, again, shuttered. So 2 bars have shuttered since 2018, all right? And that's it? Oh.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
but you're not done.
All right. Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So, I guess since this picture is up, I'll talk about it briefly. I do 2 types of storytelling. One is like an Aaron Neville kind of thing, like tell it like it is, where I'm just, going back to my journalism roots, and I'm telling a story or reporting a story as it happened. And then the other aspect is constructed reality. So this is an example of a constructed reality. This is a self-portrait from a larger project called A Blackness Continuum, where I'm examining police brutality on black men from 1955 to 2015. So here I was embodying Jimmy Lee Jackson, who was killed after doing a peaceful voting rights march in Alabama. That is one of the more iconic scenes in the movie Selma, and that really helped. I think one of his killing was one of the catalysts behind the Montgomery to Selma march. But so this is constructed reality. What we just saw was the telling it like it is. And again, it's just a deep fascination about this city. I think, if I have a superpower, it would be that I grew up in New Orleans, right? but I have a fascination of an outsider. Like, even though I grew up in these traditions, I'm still very deeply interested and curious about it. So I think we have these things about under-recognized black genius, right? And I think it happens for several reasons. And either you grew up with it and you kind of just, I don't want to say complacent with it, but it's like a tradition, right? So that could be an impediment. Another impediment could be your return on investment when you're documenting culture. It's slow, right? You don't easily get paid. So if I shot a wedding, that's 3 stacks. I'm gonna see it right now, because I'm gonna get that deposit first, and then you get your pictures, you get your money back on delivery. But doing this type work, you don't readily get paid, right? So that's one thing. And then I think sometimes depending on where you grew up in New Orleans, right? If you grew up in New Orleans East and you came from a decently affluent family, I'm talking about pre-Katrina, you may have never experienced this type of culture, right? And then sometimes your parents could have discouraged you. Like, you're gonna go to school and study. What? Hell no. I heard Spike Lee talk about that one time. He was like, black parents could have been the biggest dream killers. He was saying, like, because I think within the blackness, we get like this bait and switch. Because of, I heard Mashama Bailey talk about it, like being in the culinary industry, where we looked at that as like servitude, right? So we were discouraged from like really pursuing that, trying to, erase that. And then look what happened to Southern food and all this kind of things that we have been doing for so long, and we hadn't until recently commodified on that culture. So that's what I mean by like some of the impediments to really recognizing black genius. And it's just a thing that I'm deeply committed to doing. And I don't think, the reason why I got into it was because of Hurricane Katrina. I've been a writer since 2001, and then in 2005 when Katrina happened, I wasn't here. I had started graduate school, so I wasn't ready to, and I still wouldn't do it now that I think about it for real, like really ride out a hurricane. But I wanted to. I just was like, man, I wish I could have been there taking photographs. And I saw all these people doing what you call like parachute journalism. You come in and you just leave. And I was like, well, I'm not prepared to do that. I don't have the capabilities to do that. I don't even have anywhere to send these images to. But about 45 days after Katrina, we returned to the city, and it just gave me the inspiration to do some long-term storytelling about this place that was very traumatic for me, that somewhere that you knew just was gone, right? For all intents and purposes. And then when it came back, it was different. And I don't have issues with anyone telling stories of our community, but I firmly believe that people of our community have to tell our own stories, right? So I remember coming back to Second Lines, and it was just like so many photographers who didn't look like me, and it was so many books written by people who didn't look like me. And I remember reading one, because I started writing my thesis, and these people, they were like, and I don't have a problem with people with PhDs at all, I'm not saying that, but they were like 3 people with PhDs, they were writing about a Second Line. It was like a ragtag group of people. I was like, man, this shit wasn't like from the 40s. They wrote this shit in 06. And it just is like, man, it just really pissed me off of who got to tell our narrative and then commodify off of it. So then I got this unwavering commitment to telling these stories. And it's interesting, like a little idea that you have that, takes you very far, but you scribble something down in a notebook, and then you execute it, and then you keep going. So it's been a very gratifying project to have, and one that I look forward to continue growing it. So I'll stop there, and if you have any questions, I'll answer them. And if you don't have any questions, that means I sucked. Yeah. Thank you.